Unless you click away, you are about to witness a rather fascinating interview with a horseman experienced in many different military periods of reenactment on horseback. He had lots of fascinating things to say. I just say, every now and then, because why interrupt a man when he's saying something interesting? And I thought, great, this is going to be a terrific video. I've got interviews with other people about horses. I've got loads of cutaways to all sorts of things that we've been talking about. And unfortunately, on the way home, someone stole my camera and all of my footage. But someone, whilst we were shooting this particular interview, had set up a mobile telephone just on a tripod, just recording a wide shot, a backup, an emergency thing that we could maybe cut to if there was something getting boring, or maybe there was a mistake that we had to cover. That is now all the footage that we have to work with. And the sound was completely unusable because all the animals, all the traffic, loads and loads of people walking past, and general hubbub, and there was wind on top of that. Yes, the sound was completely unusable. Until it was put through a rather crafty AI program, which did what the human brain does, and it filtered out all the extraneous stuff that it wasn't interested in, and just concentrated on these two voices. It trained itself up, listening to that tone of voice, I can reproduce that, listening to this distinct tone of voice, right, and it recognized English, because it had word recognition software in it, so it, okay, I can guess what the next word is. I heard these 5 words, so the next one is probably, and it would guess, and using its AI logic and experience, it normally guessed correctly, but sometimes it really didn't, which explains some of the rather strange editing. The camera, you'll notice, will cut this way and that, and there are a couple of, hang on, clearly there was something missing there, moments. Yes, sometimes it guessed completely the wrong word, but those bits have gone. And instead, what you've got is a strange fiction. The sound is not anything that was recorded on the day directly. It is a work of fiction created by an AI program, but it's actually the same work of fiction that you heard last week. Do you remember you were in that cafeteria talking? It was really noisy to that person that you were very interested in, and your consciousness didn't make you very aware of all the hubbub around you. That was sort of filtered out by the, if you like, AI system in your own head. And you concentrated on what they were saying. And even though it was very difficult to hear what they were saying in that noise, most of the time you guessed correctly from context. A bit like the AI program. But there was that time when you guessed the wrong word and you ended up getting slapped. And I'm very sorry to hear about that. But anyway, sometimes luck's with you and sometimes it isn't. Anyway, so here you go. A weird work of audio fiction.
So what do we have here? So I'm Jamie Wissington from Rebellion Reenactment, and I'm here with my loyal warhorse Katie at the lovely Battle of Evesham, and I'm today going to talk about how you would train up a horse to go to battle.
So, how would you train up a horse to go into battle?
The first thing you would need is a horse that's been backed. It's obviously had saddle on, it understands a rider, it can understand commands. The next step is to get some infantry you don't really care that much about. And the first step you do is you get them in a very loose order, and all you do is you very quietly, just in walk, ask them to walk between the lines. And then you slowly build it up. You get the infantrymen to close in a little bit more each time, make them start making a little bit of noise. Eventually there'll be not enough distance between the infantrymen for the horse to go past, and they'll have to start backing away. Now, the backing away is really important when you're training them. What you're training them to do is that they are in control of the situation. If they go up to an infantryman, their expectation is that they will back away. And you do this over and over and over again, over potentially years. And what you'll get is a horse that will look at an infantry line and go, yeah, I'm going to have them. And she will do that, right? Put her in front of an infantry line and say, we're going to charge in, and she will charge straight through them. If they move, great. If they don't, she'll shoulder barge them out of the way. So
she has no inkling of the danger that a sharp, spiky thing like a spear might pose?
Not particularly. So the way to do it is to associate that with no danger. Because you're training them up originally before they go anywhere near a battlefield. And you train them up so that they think, even if there's a block of men with pikes there, but if that block of men, as the cavalry comes up, all steps out the way and lets the horse through, they'll come to associate coming up to a block of pikemen with, hello Hattie, they'll associate it with them moving out the way.
Right.
So what you get is eventually you get a horse that just sees a block, people, and isn't afraid of it. They'll run into it because they don't realize the danger, because we've trained them to not think it's dangerous.
Okay, so that'll work
Once.
once. So you go into a real enemy that doesn't move its sharp pointy things aside, and the horse gets a sharp pointy thing in it.
Yep, it probably will. And they would probably run straight onto it with that, just because they wouldn't think that anything else was going to happen other than they'd move out the way.
Okay, so if that's the way they've been trained, and you think then that you'll never be able to use that horse again for the same purpose?
Probably not. Because once they've associated that one instance with a considerable amount of pain, they'll shy away.
So how long does it take to get the horse to the stage that you could charge an infantry block?
If you were working at it every day, you could probably do it in a month or two. Yes.
Okay, so it's every day for a month or two, and you need a load of infantry to help you do this, so it's quite a lot of people involved. And then after all that, it's still a one-shot weapon, if you like.
Yeah, you as a rider probably wouldn't do that, because you know it's dead, even if the horse is up for going through. And you are a very knightly person, you're very expensive, and your horse is incredibly expensive. You said previously it's cost of a Ferrari for a destrier.
Right.
So you wouldn't want to waste that resource, so you probably wouldn't charge straight into a fight, but you could train them to do it, definitely.
Right.
Whether you would or not is a bit of an iffy question. But a cavalry charge is a bit of an all or nothing deal, especially when you're going at the front of them. Because have you ever been charged at by 20 horses at a time?
I am very aware of the psychological effect. They are really big.
Yes.
Yeah.
When you've got 20 of them charged, like I've been at Hastings where we did have 20 horses charging at them through us, because we were doing this kind of training where we were in open order and they were just coming straight through us. The ground shakes at 20 horses. Now imagine 1,000. It would have been absolutely thunderous. And what you're really trying to get the infantry to do is to break apart. So you do have those gaps to go through, and then you lance them, you stab them, or whatever. But if they held still and hold their hold their pikes out, hold their spears out steady, they'll probably kill all the horses, or at least the front rank of them, which probably would fall on the front rank of infantry and crush them. So you would get some damage done, but probably not very efficient to lose all your cavalry in a charge like that. But what your hope is that they see you coming. They're all braced. They're feeling brave. They're feeling great. They're seeing 1,000 horses charging up towards them, and they go, "Oh, I don't like that. Yeah. I think I might. I'm out, guys." And once one person's breaks, that's a gap. And as soon as there's a gap, the horses will see that gap and they will aim for it, and they will break it more and more.
So the riders aren't aiming for it, the horses will.
The horses will aim for it.
Right.
Because they've been associated that the infantry will make a gap for them. Infantry will get trampled, infantry will get smacked out the way. Like, a horse like that, 750 kilos, without a rider, plus rider in full armor, if it was lace period, barding on the horse as well.
Right.
Or some eastern armors as well.
So it's getting on for a ton.
Yeah. And you've got that potentially running at you. They probably wouldn't be at full gallop, because it would have been exhausted and needed enough energy to get back afterwards.
Very difficult to keep formation as well.
Yeah, it's incredibly hard to keep formation at gallop. At canter, you can do it relatively easily, but gallop, it's very, very hard, because they start racing each other.
But there are still people throwing things, stones, javelins, and the like, so the horse is likely to get hurt. Even if it's not killed or injured or lamed, it's still likely to get hurt. And then how difficult is that horse going to be to ride in battle or at all thereafter?
It depends on the personality of the horse. Some will be absolutely fine with it. They'll get injured, but they'll be like, it's actually all right. I've still known my training. I'll still follow my training, and they'll still do it. You'll get ones that will never go near a battlefield ever again. You wouldn't necessarily know that until you got to another battle. So I wouldn't be surprised if you had moments where you had knights getting ready to charge in, and their horses just refused. later on in a campaign when they've been through a few battles and the horses are just like almost PTSD levels. They will go completely crazy and you can't really control them. You can sort of direct them to some degree, and that's kind of what the medieval bits and spurs were for, was to sort of be like, no, we are definitely going in. But there's a level where they're so panicked that so when we refer to a horse bolting,
Yeah.
what a lot of people say is bolting is not, it's just them shying away. The actual term for bolting is when they're completely out of it. They will run into the direction and they will just keep running.
Yeah.
Like they won't stop for love nor money will you get them to stop.
Yeah, whether you've fallen off or not.
I've had the very unfortunate thing of knowing a horse that bolted and managed to skewer themselves on a, the spike fences. They basically, it was, we're not sure what happened. They basically found the horse the next day.
Okay.
But once they are afraid, there's not much you can do. Right. So all of that training that you're putting in, it might well be once.
So one of the reasons to take 3 horses into a campaign, if you're a knight, would be for that reason.
Yeah,
if one of them decides on a given day, oh, no, I'm not up for it, you have to change horse.
Yeah, basically. You might have your favorite horse that you've always gone into battle with, but then this battle they've decided, no, that's too much.
But in the ancient world, as far as I know, with the Romans and the Greeks and the like, they weren't taking 3 horses each. They had a horse.
They did have a horse, but they generally didn't use the same kind of tactics. So, especially in the medieval period, it was very much impact warfare. So they were lance charging into people. A lot of the Roman stuff was skirmish cavalry. So it wasn't necessary. Apart from sort of the super heavy cataphracts that probably had the armor to actually survive anything. You've got very skirmish-based cavalry. You have bows, you have javelins. You're not really necessarily wanting to charge in. You're trying to break up formations. The best case scenario is actually that you get the infantry, you annoyed them so much. The infantry's like, oh, had it with these guys. I'm going to run at them. They break up their own formation.
Right.
In which case, once that formation's broken up, the skirmish cavalry can actually go in, and so they've got those gaps to get between and start stabbing and stuff. But what they want is the formation to break up. It wasn't until the medieval period where they started to really go, no, we can actually just smash in and really, really break them.
So when you're training for reenactment...
For reenactment, it's slightly different because of that. We know we don't aim for the horses. The horses are never going to be in, hopefully, in any danger whatsoever. Yeah. Like, we make sure swords are always well in the air. If we're engaging infantry, it's always off to the side at a far distance. Mm-hmm. Like, we very much try to make sure that that they don't get scared, that they're never hurt, because then they associate it with pain. But it's not just necessarily pain as well. It's scare. It's like just people shouting in their base and stuff like that. It's
strange smells, strange costumes.
Yeah, they do sometimes find things that they're just afraid of.
Yeah.
He doesn't care about any kind of infantry block, which is scared of umbrellas.
Ooh.
She stood next to a cannon going off.
Yeah.
She flinched, but she didn't really do anything.
Yeah, but those umbrellas
those umbrellas, she absolutely hates.
They have their thin sticks and they're the big things.
Yeah, right. One of my worst falls at a show was basically because we were going around a corner and there just happens to be an umbrella there.
Yeah.
Her back legs slipped out, but she then spooks at the umbrella, so her front legs went the other way and we just completely fell over. Right. So I was on the floor sort of like, what happened? Why am I on the floor? A bit confused. I tell you, I was fine and dry was fine. And I basically got straight back up, got on the horse, did the rest of the show. But
okay, so she's training you now. So now you're looking out for people with umbrellas in case your horse is boxed.
But they train us just as much. Yeah. Like they know how to manipulate people. Definitely, they're smarter than people think.
So you train for several periods, is that right?
Yes. So I do. This is the main period I do. Is 13th century. But I also do Napoleonics.
Lots of
that. I've done Victorian stuff with the die cards. And I've done Ancient Greek as well. Oh, right. So I did that bareback, which was uncomfortable. I what else have I done? I've done some Roman stuff. So just little bits of everything.
Tell me about this bareback. So what were you able to do bareback? Were you shooting bows?
So I was shooting bows. Right. I was also doing javelins. The main thing is you're just not stable. So if you lean too far one way, you have very little recourse to pull yourself back up.
Yeah.
It's why we sometimes have things called "Oh Jesus" straps, which is normally just a bit of leather around the neck, where if you start to feel unbalanced, you basically grab that and you use that to try and...
Lord Numidians had that.
Yeah.
So if you're shooting a bow, you've got both hands occupied, so you haven't got hands on the bit or bridle either, the reins. So did you detect any advantage of bareback?
No, it was just the saddles hadn't been invented, basically. It was a slow process of sort of development of saddle technology, basically. So they originally started with just basically bareback, but they might have a blanket on for a little bit more comfort. And then it would develop into what they had was like a cushion that was just sort of strapped to the horse that they'd sit on. Eventually you evolved Roman horn saddle, which whether it was Roman or not is a bit debatable.
Some say, some call it Celtic saddle.
Yeah.
But you've tried those.
I have tried.
So do you have an opinion on whether you prefer the pommel saddle over the stirrup?
I prefer the stirrup, but that's probably because I'm far more used to stirrups.
Right.
And because originally I'm English trained rider, but I've recently been doing a lot of Western stuff. So I do cattle camps with her as well. I do cattle drives. So that's one of the other things actually we do as part of our training. We treat the infantry like cows. So there's this thing in Western riding called bubble theory. And it's every horse and every cow has a bubble, and when those bubbles meet, one has to move away. So what you're doing when you're moving cows is you're not necessarily pushing them, but you're getting into their bubble, and that causes them to move away. So we actually changed up how we start doing our training to basically mimic that, so that they start associating it with, oh, it's just a cow. We can chase them, we can run them down, they're not scary at all. And it's a great way of associating them with something that they're in complete control of, because they are in control of the cow during cattle match.
Right.
It's not necessarily the rider. If you ever look up reining horses, the riders are there. It's the horse doing a lot of the work. Like they are proper. They'll pick out a cow. They will follow it. They're very much trained.
So they become like sheepdogs.
Yeah, very much.
Wow.
And if you see some of the maneuvers they do, it's crazy. The sort of things they proper like drop down almost onto their knees and turn. So they get these really tight turns, but they can just follow a cow that's probably quite a bit smaller than they are.
Right.
And having tried to catch cow with her, he's not nearly as fast as the cows. Oh.
Well, I've heard this. I've heard that cows can do jumps as well that are quite impressive.
Yeah, they can jump.
But you tend not to see that.
No, yes.
So we're more used to the modern dairy cow, which isn't quite as agile as its wild forebear.
Not quite. In an alternate timeline, I can definitely see it being the cow that became the ridden animal, right, rather than the horse.
With their battle horns.
Yeah, could definitely see it. Imagine charging into an infantry line with ginormous horns on.
Yeah, and then
coming a whole block.
Coming up against a unit of trained rhinos coming the other way.
Oh, yeah.
So there are limitations, though, with what you can achieve in reenactments.
Yes.
So watching you ride around yesterday, there was a lot of, as you say, standing a little off and just going ting, ting, ting with swords at a distance, and then riding in a way which obviously safely avoids hitting anyone.
So you can, in the same way you could train them to hit the infantry, you could also train them to run into other horses. And they probably did. They would have taught them, like, now we're going a straight line, about horses in the way, we'll run into that horse and knock them over. Because they're very well balanced, front and back. But if you knock them on the side,
right,
they can actually fall over quite easily.
Okay, but you're not going to be doing that in a
not in a reenactment sense. So
in the field of reenactment, do you think there's much more you can do?
There's some scripted things we've done. So we have, in previous years here, we've scripted it where I've lanced one of the other riders. And basically what we've done is I've charged up a couch lance. What they've done is they held their sword arm out, and I've gone under there. They've gone like that and basically slumped over the horse being dead.
Right.
Apparently, I made a little girl cry once doing it
Well done.
because they thought I killed the horse.
Oh,
Because apparently, from their angle, it looked like I'd gone through the head of the horse before I went into the right. So it's like there's ways of doing stuff that, from a crowd point of view, they can't quite tell what you're doing, but it looks quite nice.
okay, but these have to be pre-arranged. There's all set for years.
Arranged. It will be very, very difficult. You'd have to completely know every single rider, every single parameter that was going to happen. It's one of the reasons we don't really do infantry interactions at this show, is because there's so many infantry. It's difficult to one group to split out and actually, say, charge through or expect about or anything. Just because there's so many, and you always get that one young reenactor that's like, "Oh, those guys are interacting with horses. I'm going to interact with the horse," and they'll jump out in front of you and just get run over.
Yeah.
It does happen. We have seen it a few times where someone a bit gun-ho, not really understanding what they were doing, basically jumped out in front of the horse.
I've seen that with a protester and a police horse. Well, oh, the police horse is bound to stop, and no, it didn't.
So I was at Tewkesbury Armour at the Abbey show back in May, and we were doing some infantry training with them there, and we had guys in full plate armour, big guys, like almost rugby player guys, and we were meant to be just riding past them, and we were just doing it nicely, and then she just basically shoulder barged him and knocked him down. So I just decided, well, wasn't me directly.
Okay, and you can't tell me this without smiling.
All these horses, which would you rather take into battle?
Okay, well, I think I can see where you were going with that. So a lot of people will say the big one, but actually the small hardy one is often preferred.
Yep.
They need less food, for one thing.
Less food. During the medieval period, Casey there would have been considered a giant of a horse at 16 pounds. Generally, the largest type were about 15. So we're all just generous.
She's not the tallest here, is she?
No, that would be King in the corner over there, who's 18 hands.
He is
Very, very big.
Yes.
He is a Percheron. He's a very big draft horse.
Right.
But the problem with having big horses is that they are hard to maneuver. They do struggle turning quite as quickly as some of these things. Like they can turn really, really quickly, whereas it can't.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily speed that wins in a battle. It's being able to maneuver into a certain position. So the most dangerous position for a person to be on is have someone come up this side, because the sword's out here.
Yeah.
There's backs exposed.
So it's about 7:30 behind you.
Yeah. So that's the point where you're like, oh God, like I can't. You can do what's called a drop carry over your shoulder, and
It's very weak.
it's very weak.
Yeah.
And probably wouldn't actually help that much. But that's the optimal place to probably kill someone from horseback.
Yeah.
So it didn't matter if you were super, super fast. If you couldn't get into that position because you couldn't maneuver faster than the other person.
So it's like dogfighting with
Yep.
planes. Can you turn faster than the other chap? And even if he's a fast turner, if you're faster, you still win.
Yeah, it's all about how you can turn and maneuver. But a lot of it's not necessarily about what speed you're going. It's also acceleration and deceleration. Because horses stop very, very quickly. If you train them to do it and you ask them to, they'll stop. They can do what's called a sliding stop. And they basically dig their heels in like that, and they basically slide to a stop. And what you can do with that is, if you're fighting someone off, say, and you ask them to stop, so they go shooting fast, and then you accelerate out on the other side of them.
Oh, wow. Okay, so again, like the dogfight, you stick your flaps on and slow down, and he
shoots forward, and
then you're
in a
behind him.
advantageous position. It's all about how you can maneuver, accelerate, and decelerate.
Okay, now that I've never seen, and I want to see that.
See if I can do it today.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, it is very much maneuverability, not speed.
But you also have to be able to carry a load. The bigger the horse can carry a heavier knight.
So that's why horses did actually start getting bigger was actually because of jousting. You had to have bigger and bigger horses to take the way.
But even with a horse this size, you're wearing aluminium armor
Yes,
to save her back.
to save her back. That's not that she can't take the weight. I have ridden her in full armor, full steel before. It's more just like the wear.
Grand. Thank you so much
Thank you.
for talking to her.